Welcome to another episode of Swashbuckling with Code. I am Jimmy Cleveland, and I have a quick little disclaimer. I was considering leaving this video out of this course entirely. I was worried it would be too in the weeds, so to speak. So the disclaimer, this video deviates a bit from simply showing how to set up a Gatsby site. I started the video confident in what I was going to cover because I've done it multiple times on the job. But I decided to leave the mistake that I made along the way in and show some troubleshooting because it is important for me for people to see normal development when they are learning. I think that I really appreciate it when other experienced developers leave mistakes in so I can learn from them about how they go about fixing things. So you can skip this video or just watch the first half if you don't feel like watching me struggle a bit. There is a cool learning toward the end if you do stick around, but I'll make the next video so that anyone who skips this one can just follow along just fine. You know, that won't be a problem. If the content in the video does feel overwhelming for your skill level, don't be discouraged, please. This is well beyond what you need to know to be proficient at Gatsby, the things that I'm delving into. I use Lighthouse in the video for some performance benchmarking, so if you're not familiar with that, I'll leave some links in the description in case you're curious to learn more about it. It's just a performance benchmarking tool that has really taken off, and it's part of Chrome now and that Google has kind of spearheaded. So I also have some videos coming out soon that will cover Lighthouse, and when they're up, I'll link them in the description here as well, or put a link somewhere. You'll see it. Kind of a couple last notes. It's not instinctively easy to leave big mistakes in your videos and look like a fool, just so you know. I think that's why most people don't do it. The other reason is that it's hard to balance the time of the video. It takes a while to kind of go through troubleshooting. But as I was thinking about what my channel should be originally, when I was, first bringing it into the world, I decided that I wanted to do what I can to combat imposter syndrome by showing that, a senior, lead, or staff level, whatever title you want to go with, a software engineer, they make big, dumb mistakes all the time. You don't get to see those a lot in videos for the various reasons that I mentioned before. So this is why I'd really appreciate feedback on videos like this. You can leave a comment or just a simple like or dislike if you don't feel like commenting. But any sort of criticism, constructive or whatever, or just letting me know that you like it and you want to see more of it, will really help motivate me and let me know the right direction to take this channel as it continues to grow. So yeah, enough of that. Let's get into it. So now that you know how to get your images into Markdown using the plugins and also utilizing Gatsby Image Sharp, but also how to query for them and manually input them, we can put the two together to get some pretty cool functionality here and get a little more customization over how we want to use our images. So if we go over to the docs here, there is this page that I'll link in the description for working with images in Markdown. And the part that we're particularly interested in is this querying for images from frontmatter. So you want to scroll up a little bit after clicking down to that, and you'll see that they are using a featured image attribute in the frontmatter and then pointing off to where their image is. So it depends on the location of the image relative to the file. That's what we're going to start with, and then we'll move on to querying it. And it'll make a little bit of sense of why we're doing this in just a moment. So if we jump over to our code here, I've already got the server running and everything. If you remember, we have this first MD, our markdown file, and then the URL is first-markdown. So we're going to say featured image because it's a great name, why not? And then what you want to do is say from here, which we're in this data folder, so we want to go up and then we want to go into images. And to be different than this one, just so we can see them being requested differently, I'm going to use this other image that we have and paste that. And you do have to put the extension here. Okay. And let's just see. Well, we'll set that part up first, and then we'll come back to that. I don't need the blame. And if you go to Markdown in your templates, this is our template, if you recall, that generates each of those Markdown pages. And we're already querying for Markdown, remark, all this stuff. And so what we can do from here is you'll notice that we should have access in our front matter to a featured image. And because we're pointing to this child image sharp, or because we're pointing to that image, it's going to give us child image sharp, excuse me. And that will allow us to do all the rest of the query here. So the front matter now will have, in addition to all the other stuff, we'll have child image sharp. And that's going to be, actually, nope, that's a featured image, sorry. And then that will have from there, child image sharp. And it might make more sense to put this underneath to be a little less confusing. It doesn't really matter, but I just think it's a little easier to follow there. And then on child image sharp, we can just grab fluid like normal and set our max width, and we'll keep it at like 800, let's say. Okay, and then ... Gatsby image sharp, and then fluid in this case. So then we can go back to the top and say I want to import image from Gatsby image, and then we're going to use that probably right below the H1. Pretty standard for a lot of blog formats. So if you recall, this takes a fluid property, and we'll just close that tag. And you can put your, alt here, and well, let's get back to that. The fluid first, what you're going to do is pass markdown remark dot front matter. So we're still climbing down this object, but instead of title now, we want to get featured image dot child image sharp. I know it's a mouthful. Fluid. Now for the alt tag, I'm not going to go through that process for it. You would probably want to either pass something else in your featured or pull like the source name or something off of the image data to utilize that, because you should have alt tags for each of your images, just so you know. But for this example, we'll stick to this, and we'll save that, and I believe that should get us up and running. So let's see, cannot read property child image sharp of undefined, so I probably had a typo, I'm gonna guess. We might need to do our query again, because it'll probably need to figure out where the location of that is. Let's see if that just fixes our problem. Yes, it does. Okay. All right. So now we have a beautiful image here first, and then the rest of the content. So this is the one that we are pulling in from our, markdown here. So we've got that one, and then we have the featured image. And this is so that, each page will probably have some sort of featured image. And then from there, we can have however many separate images that we like. And let me show you the value of actually doing this, because why not just, put it there manually, right? Well, this gives you a little bit more control over this. So I found this really cool pirate Ipsum site. It's pretty neat. Look at this lovely little animation. Pretty fun, huh? It's quite the site for an Ipsum one. And then it just comes with some here. And what we'll do is, this UI is a little bit unintuitive to me. I tried messing around with it for a bit, but I'm just going to set them all to like 10 here. Generate some Ipsum. It should generate a ton of that. And we want a ton for a very specific reason. I'm going to show you how images behave when they get pushed down the page. Okay, so I'm going to copy all of that and come over here to our markdown, and then I'm going to paste it right here so that the image comes way after all this content. We'll go back to our page, and here we go. So we'll scroll down. The image is working down here, but check this out. Watch this network panel here. When I just refresh, notice that it requested, it's got the base64 and traced SVG for both of these, but it only requested this first image. And as I scroll down, you're going to see as I get closer to it, it's going to load in that next image. So by the time we get there, it's already preloaded. This is lazy loading in action, just automatically done for you through Gatsby image. It's pretty cool. So if we reload and then we scroll really, really fast, oh, I know I can do it. Hold on. There you go. See that? So if you scroll really, really fast, you'll get there. But it still loads in pretty fast. So they do it, you know, somewhere around here. And this is the interesting thing about this. So when you load in, your very first image is this lazy loaded base64, just like the rest of your other images would be, except we're using traced SVG. But this is actually not a good pattern because your users are going to see this thing first. It's kind of like the first eye-catching thing besides the headline of your, and this is true for like any type of page layout. Like if you're in products and you have heroes or landing pages or blogs and you just have this image, you don't really want to make your user wait longer and lazy load this. You want to do what's known as eager loading here, or the standard image behavior. So what we can actually do is if you go over to the docs for Gatsby image, and if you recall, there was a bunch of properties down at the bottom here. Now, what we want to take a look at in particular are the fade in. This is very important. I'm going to say why in a moment. And the loading. So you don't want to use critical anymore. That's deprecated. We want to use loading now, and we want to set it to eager. The default is lazy. Okay, and I'm going to show you why. So right here, I need to push up, but this is our current page on Netlify, the vigorous Yonath. And so what we'll do is I will, let's do this through code actually. I will commit these changes, just as whatever, and we'll say add featured image to blog posts. Just a real quick commit there. And I'll push this up to master. Oh yes, that's probably true. Sorry, push SWC master. I just haven't given it that SSH key. Set that up right. So we'll do it through the terminal here. Okay, and now our Netlify should automatically start another build, since we had already set this up through continuous integration. Pretty cool. And we can go over to that. And I will probably fast forward here once this is done, so I can show you the changes up on an actual server and why we're singling this particular issue out. Okay, we actually got an error here, and this is pretty obvious. Now, I was actually thinking this might happen, but I wasn't sure if it would happen in build. So the second markdown page never passed a feature image. So we have a situation where we will try to grab some data that doesn't exist, and that's no bueno, right? So how we're going to fix that is we could either go into the second and just fix it, or we could fix the real problem. So we'll fix the real problem just to get out of the situation. So all we want to do here is we could, this is really the point where we should start naming these variables to be a little bit more declarative. I've kind of held off on this, but what we could do here is say, hey, I want to pull off, let's say, well, we could just name it differently, but we have the featured image. Yeah, let's do that. So let's say featured image. So we want to pull that off of markdown remark.frontmatter, and that's it. You don't have to do it this destruct way. It's a common way that the linters like you to. So you could name it whatever you want, or, you know, just chain it onto here. But I think I prefer this way now that I'm just used to it. And this will allow us to just do something silly like, hey, featured image, you know, do you exist? And if you do, then we will, whoopsie, then we will render this. Okay. And then we should test that ourselves, right? So before we push up another build again, we'll do a yarn build here. Cool. It seemed to build successfully. So with that in mind, we will say fix check for featured image before adding it. It's not the greatest name, but it'll do. And we can't do that. I forgot. I'm going to get push C master. Okay. And now we wait for another build. That's why you check your builds locally first before pushing them up, because then you don't have to wait for an entire build. So let's go back over to here, and I'll fast forward this one once again. Site is live, and let's jump over to it and see if it's updated. Okay, so you can see we have this gigantic image that we'll probably want to change some general sizing because it's 800 wide and it's stretching it at this point. So we'd want to put a container around it. But really all that we care about for right now, we'll do some styling later, is that it loads just like we expect here. So let's do a quick check. You can see that it loads in, and this one is loaded as you scroll down. What a time to be alive. What an amazing development chain. It's pretty cool, just the whole continuous integration and lazy loading, and man, there's just so much cool stuff going on with this tech stack. So now what we'll do is we'll take this URL, we'll head over to our trusty web.dev. You want to do test my site, and we're going to paste that in here and run an audit. And I think we might need a trailing slash there, but it should tell us. Now you could do this in your browser, like so, where you could go to the Lighthouse panel here and generate a report. But the problem with doing it this way, in my experience, is that it goes off of your machine hardware. And then, you want to be in incognito. That's usually why I am, because you don't want whatever plugins you have to affect it. It's pretty local as far as the stats go, and it can give you some, inconsistencies. Whereas this one will be a lot more consistent just to do it through their server. So we've got some really fantastic scores here. Let's review the report. And you can see there were issues affecting this. It's going to say that it was redirected here. So like I said, you want to put the trailing slash. So we should switch that real quick and run this one more time. But while we're doing that, we should still be able to see we had a largest contentful paint of 2.4 seconds, which it is in the green, but that's not very good for how simple this is, honestly. And it's kind of hard to see here, but there are actually these little blur load states till it gets nice and clean and crisp here. So we can actually fix that. I don't know if they're going to give us any hints toward this. This is really cool. They're going to tell you some accessibility stuff, etc. This video is not for Lighthouse, but it is going to focus on just this image. So we won't hone in on that particularly. I mean, we're still getting a great score, and it seems like we shouldn't be worried about it right now. But, it's the easiest time to optimize if you know what you're doing here. So 2.2 this time. You always want to run the reports a couple times, by the way, just in case to, get a kind of low, high, medium. The more the better, but, you got to be reasonable. Okay, so before I fix this, what I'm actually going to show you is that if you go over to the Performance tab and you reload here, you saw how it blurred in, right? It's profiling here, and this will allow you to see the image little thumbnails here as it's loading. And there's also this frames one that gives you a little bit bigger one. And I don't know if I can zoom in on this. Kind of works. Just move this down, move this up, just do a little bit of dancing. And then the main thing here is that you see all this like dot slashes like right here where all these little individual frames, screenshots are happening. And if you follow along, like, oh goodness, do I need to zoom back out to get this captured correctly? Let me zoom back out. It's kind of hard to see here, but as we go through the timeline, I don't know why the blur. Oh, so this is kind of tricky. This is the page already being loaded first. You want to go to about blank if you actually want to see that. Just be blank here. But then this is when the page finally actually reloaded. This tricked me for a little while. And then, so this is the initial page load. It's blurry, 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 and then there. This is just the experience that we want to avoid for our users as much as possible. It's not that it's terrible. It's just there's not really much reason to lazy load this if this is the first critical thing. And that's really what this largest contentful paint is trying to measure. This is going to be the largest thing. And I want to show that by, there's a little icon here that you can hover over, which is really cool, LCP. And that will show you which element it considers the largest contentful paint. So if you want to do well on your Lighthouse scores and you want to please your viewers according to stats and all that, this is something you want to take care of. And now we are in a position where we can do that. So if you remember, let's jump back over to the Gatsby docs here. We want to say, okay, loading. So on the image tag, you can actually set loading. And we want to set this to eager. Isn't that nice? It like auto-completed the options for us. And then this is fade in, which it shows us there, and that's a Boolean, and we want to say false. So now we can test this locally. Yarn develop. Make sure it works how we expect. So right now we had that blur. This isn't done yet. And then see, it does do the base 64, but it immediately switches over. It doesn't do that little transition, which doesn't look quite as nice, but it does actually get it to the user more quickly. So what I want to show there is, remember that our Lighthouse showed 2.2 seconds largest contentful paint. And now what we're going to do is we're going to push this up, this change, and say, make featured image eager load. So now, while this build is going on, we do a quick coverage of that. Okay, yep, so we're building. And hopefully now it makes a little bit more sense why we don't want to just include all the images, whoops, got to go down here, like this. Because these can all be lazy loaded, and that's fantastic. But by setting some front matter here and pointing to it as the featured image, we get a little more control here. There's other reasons to do this too, but this is one of the cool ones, is that, you know, we now can say, okay, well, actually know that this is going to be loaded right here at the top before all of the markdown content. You can see this is where we dangerously set all that content. And so what I want to do is I want to eager load only this image, because what would happen is if we were to set this on just all of our images globally, if we were to pass that to, like, let's say the Gatsby config, you know, where we do our markdown image processing, if we were to set that there, everything would be eager loaded, and we would lose all the benefits of the lazy loading purpose, that we don't load that content until they get there. We want the first view that the user sees to be as fast as possible. To eliminate bounce rate and to get them, you know, engaged in it. And then we want to load everything lazily after that. But in this case, we want to opt out of that behavior. You might also have like different styles you want to do, or a different way that you want to do a caption or something like that. So this just gives you more control by combining the power of both of these. And that's why I showed how to do them both ways first. So now we'll come back here, and this should, yep, you can see that it does that. And it's super fast, right? Like, look at that, boom. Now I'll reload this, and then at the same time, we're going to rerun this report, okay? And we should see an improvement from this 2.2 seconds here. We got a 97, so we might have hit a low on something else. Let's run one more report now that this is open. Okay, we actually got worse that time, and I'm wondering why. Okay, that time I got a 99. 2.2. Sometimes the servers take a little bit to update, but it does look like it's not blurring in first. So I'm curious why our largest contentful paint thinks it's taking so long here. That's strange. That doesn't seem right at all. Yeah, and this time we go straight from, you know, a real quick blur to being focused. And our LCP is still considered the image. And it seems to me like it would be loading in quite a bit faster this way. So let's say we try out adding no base 64 so we can just load the image ASAP and see if that makes a difference on our largest contentful paint here. Why do you do that? So no base64. We'll try that. We should do WebP here, but I want to try this first just to know if it does anything. That's the only change that we've made here. And so now if we just say remove base 64 from featured image as our commit, and we'll come over here to our terminal and then git push swc master. And then I will run develop while that's building so I can test it locally while the build is going on. So come over to here and reload that. Okay, so it's just like, the problem here is, boom, boom, wait, oh, it does actually place hold though. Our content isn't shifting around. So even with no base64, it at least blocks out that part, which is really nice. So that's cool. And then we'll go to our builds here. We'll wait for this build to finish as well. And I'll just fast forward on that. Build complete. Let's refresh this. White. And then that. So is that really a better user experience? I suppose it's debatable. But what I'm going to do is run this again and see if this largest contentful paint goes down at all. Now, you know, you're kind of min-maxing here with the whole 99, you're already there type of thing. But this is really more for testing out like at scale. So I'm going to run another one. So you can see it's white here. And then it just immediately loads in, so it looks like we got the right one, as far as we can tell. Largest contentful paint element. This is the largest paint element with the viewport. Nice. They added this, huh? That's really cool. Size is tree and forest. Cover fit. So it's this initial, huh? That's interesting. It looks like we got down to 2 this time. So we were at 2.2. That looks like a minor fluctuation difference. Okay, so I'm going to do one more thing. 1.9 this time. So it definitely is considering it to be faster to not have it be the blurry image first and then fade in. It just goes straight to the default. And then the last thing that I'll try here is if we go and add, we want to do with WebP, traced SVG. I don't know if you can add these in any order, actually. I'm not sure. But yeah, let's try this one. I am curious. What's our last one? 2.1. So it's kind of a moot difference here. So now let's go. Oops. Why do you do this, Vim? Why'd you jump there? How strange. My word jump. Okay. And then switch featured image to WebP traced SVG. Cool. Let's widen this a little bit. Git push swc master. Site's live. Let's test it out. Okay. Load-in's kind of interesting since there's no transition. I don't know if I like that, but let's see how Lighthouse treats it. 0.8 seconds? Whoa. .2 seconds. 1.5 seconds. Interesting. It's gotten worse a couple times. So we just got a really lucky one on that one. Shouldn't go up further. 1.4. Okay, so we've kind of hit that. 1.5 possibly being the high end of the range. So I'm going to do yet one more change because I want to see with WebP, no traced SVG, how it treats that. Because that really could be the difference here. Done? Cool. All right. Okay, we're back to the blur here now with WebP because we didn't do no blur. So let's see how that behaves. Or no base64, I mean. 2.2. Very interesting. So going from traced SVG to the full resolution seems to actually be considered a faster largest contentful paint by Lighthouse. So we're getting, still back in the 2.2 range here. Now, it said that the largest contentful paint was that image and not the SVG, didn't it? But I wonder if that's why. Because it goes off of the smallest image. Oh, that's very interesting. So this actually might be kind of a problem with Lighthouse here. That what might be happening is that the largest contentful paint, it's taking that small base 64 image. Where is that at? Here. This one. And it's treating this like, okay, that used to be the largest contentful paint, but then when the large resolution one comes in, the full resolution, I should say, that's when it says, okay, this is the new one. And so the time it takes for this one to load in is 2.2-ish seconds on this metric. But with the SVG, you're sort of tricking it, because now if we do with WebP, was it traced SVG, switch this back, add SVG back. I mean, this is your life when you're testing. It's annoying, but when you're trying to really get the most optimization that you can, these numbers can really matter. Right now they're kind of silly, but it can be a huge difference when you have a ton of images on the page or a bunch of other stuff loading. It can really slow down the time frame in which that image loads in. So I think it's worth understanding and knowing about, even if it is a bit tedious. If you want to have the best websites, you got to play the game. And the game is tedium. Okay, it's live. Is it working? Yes, it is. Let's run that audit one more time. So from an 98 to 100, which really isn't the thing that we care about. We really care about this right here. But notice all these scores went down when we did this. We got 0.8 again. From 2.2 to 0.8. 2.1 was like our best too. 0.8 is our best right now. That's amazing. Yeah. Wow. That is crazy. So where's this one again? 1.4 with traced SVG. That was like our worst one, I think, or 1.5. And then we should still have 99, 99, so 2.2. So yeah, 2.1-ish we'll say is a good one. Whoa, what happened here? Total blocking time for some reason. Sometimes you get hit with that random stuff, where you just got hung up on some slow thread or something. Yeah, back down to 80. That's so weird. Okay, well, so it looks like, if you're trying to please the Lighthouse gods, you really might want to consider doing traced SVG, crossing over to the full resolution one. Now, the last thing that I really want to test here is that I think it's better when it does the fade, personally. So I'm going to kill the fade in false and let it fade in like natural. Oh yeah, we wanted to look at what did it consider with the super fast paint to be the largest paint element? Yeah, it's that SVG. That's probably why. So then when you come over here and go to largest contentful paint, you'll see that it's this image that we loaded in. So it didn't take the base 64 as the largest contentful paint. So I'm wondering if we go over here, should we see that in the performance tab? If we were to reload this, should the SVG be considered? That looks so much better, honestly. It looks sick. Should the SVG be... Yeah. Yeah, it is. Look, LCP is here now. And it's still at the SVG state. And then on load event, this is after, and then the image loads in. So here you can see the image actually resolving. That's very interesting. So can we leave the fade is the question. It looks like we can, because that was that run. We can't really know for sure because we can't look at the screenshots. But if we just run it a few times, and then I'd probably wait an hour just to make sure that all the networks are updated, the nodes. 1.5, so that's our worst case scenario. So that could have been the blur. But if we get low again, then we'll just call it an anomaly and say that it just, happened to take that long. Okay, 1.1, yeah, we're looking pretty good. And even if it's that small of a difference, I'd still take the blur, because personally, I keep going back to this pirate page. I personally feel like that transition feels much better as a user. It's not very jarring. It just feels very polished. Yeah, it's cool. It's very cool. So that's interesting. We learned something very interesting through all this. So I'm not saying that you should immediately go ahead and only do traced SVG for your sites, but if you're like the way that already looks, that seems to actually favor you right now in Lighthouse. It's kind of interesting. Now, that you shouldn't really, in my opinion, tune your sites to, just do well in Lighthouse. But with Google, kind of starting to think about rankings or implementing it, I'm not sure what stage they're at yet based on performance, and they're going to probably be using Lighthouse for that. It might give you a competitive edge. You got to really kind of balance that with a good user experience, in my opinion, if you're a responsible developer. Like, if you think that this is cool and looks good and is best practice and it happens to satisfy Google, great. Should you go and make weird little hacks that satisfy Google but are a worse user experience? I do not think so, personally. I'm sure others disagree with me, but that's fine. That's just my opinion on the matter. So, behave responsibly is what I would say. The more things you know about it, the more empowered you are to do so. So I think that was we got off on a completely different tangent with this, but hopefully it was beneficial to kind of see how, one, you can combine these two ways of loading in images in Markdown, one through like a manual query, and then one, all the way down here by just using the plugin that parses it right out of here. So that is pretty sweet, and it allows us to do a lot more than just, the nonsense that we were doing, of course. You can style this very differently or put it in some different location or whatever you like. It just gives you the ability to do that. And then hopefully after that, this experiment here shows how having that extra control will allow you to flex and be able to adjust to situations like this Lighthouse thing. Let's say, I've had it on some of my sites before. The reason why I even know about this is because I've had the difference of, 3-5 seconds largest contentful paint or more because of how big a page is. And me changing it over to that eager loading, no transition state for me was a huge increase. It was like a 20-point lift in performance. So it makes a big difference sometimes at scale, and that's why I'm talking about it now. So it's good to know about it and test it at a small scale, and then as you get larger, you can say, well, you could start off saying, I don't really care about this right now, but then you'll know about it when you get to the large scale and go, oh, this is when it matters. So I hope that was very informational. I know it was a bit long, but that's kind of the content that I'm thinking about delivering with my channel. So if you like this and you want to see more of that type of stuff, just let me know, please, in the comments or however, thumbs up, whatever you like. But if you don't like it, also say so. If you'd rather it be cut straight to it and leave out all of the troubleshooting parts, we can do that as well. I'm just looking to provide something a little bit different than what I typically see, because I really appreciate the troubleshooting videos that I get to see other experienced devs showcase. So that wraps this one up. Thanks for sticking by this long.